I am here with Matt Francis, CTA, and a global Salesforce CTO for a small company that nobody's ever heard of. They produce Deep Blue, many other things like the computer called International Business Machines, or otherwise known as
The
IBM.
barcode. Yeah, we've
Yeah,
we've done a couple of things.
a few things going for you guys, right? So, all right, so we're here for two reasons. So, one reason is, well, to talk about nerd things like how does a CTA become a CTO? And the second, and actually maybe the first most important one, is I'm going to share my screen right now. We're going to talk a little bit about our kids and the fact that our kids don't know what it is that we do, but we're here to support them and help them, right? So this is Matt's daughter, Isla, and she has a goal of her own. Look at how far she's got 302 packages left to go. So I will keep this, I'll put this URL into the comments and it'll be in a big banner across the screen. So anybody who watches, please consider, either donating the cookies or ordering the cookies. Pretty much everybody in Architect Ohana already knows about this. My entire LinkedIn ecosystem of, say, thousands of people and people at work, I reminded today to buy cookies. I myself donated a bunch of cookies already and will do more of that. So, how does your daughter feel about you promoting her on this, global ecosystem that we've got going on?
I'm so proud of her. She's 10, so I have three kids. So 19, she's in college. So my oldest, I've got a 16-year-old that's a junior in high school, and I've got Isla, who's a 10-year-old. And Isla, just, so proud of her. She's in cheerleading and dance and Girl Scouts, and her troop is amazing. They're so welcoming to her. They've had so much fun doing all the different activities that Girl Scouts do. And yeah, I don't know if she understands if I'm promoting the cookies or her, but I could not be more proud of the dad, of how amazing she is. She just does everything, and she's got a big heart. And everybody knows her. Like we go out to eat or we go to the grocery store, and they're like, Isla, and we're like,
That's
who are
pretty cool.
you? We have no idea who they are. But it's just so funny to see how many people she knows and just the impact that she makes on everybody's life. So we're just blessed to have her. And if anything you guys can do to help her troop, would love your support.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so we never got into the whole Girl Scout ecosystem, I guess. But yeah, I have a daughter as well. So she's a little bit older than Nyla. She's now about 16 and a half. So she's not selling cookies. But what I have been promoting on my LinkedIn is that she has to interview two or three people on the subject of AI and how you can actually use AI to reduce the carbon footprint in the
Oh,
automotive industry. And so
mm.
she's doing a project with the future business leaders of America, and she has classmates, so they're doing that project. So you're promoting the Girl Scout Cookies for Isla. I'm promoting that whole thing,
And your
interview,
daughter just started driving too, right?
and
So
she
I
started
know
driving.
my
Exactly,
son
yeah,
just started and my oldest drives, and so I'd love to see that. I'd love to see what she comes up with on the AI and carbon footprint.
yeah. I mean, basically, I just came back from Architect Dreaming and Cactus Force, and so there was the new well-architected team
Yeah.
was there along with Dr. McClendon, no less. And she was the product manager for Data Cloud. And so I
Hmm.
put her in touch with my daughter, and she's like, "Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, I worked on this AI initiative with the automotive, and have you seen the Salesforce Automotive Cloud?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can
Oh
go
my
to
God.
partner learning camp and so spin that up for you." So but yeah, I guess it's healthy when, the dads do their own thing, but the daughter's like, I want to have nothing to do with Salesforce, and maybe I'm gonna forge my own path. I don't know. Are any of your kids actually interested, like truly
Not at
in
all.
your
Yeah.
footsteps? I, yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
give up on that myself.
Yeah, my oldest wants to be a doctor. My son has no idea, and Isla just wants to have some fun. So we're just kind of at different stages. But yeah, they
Mhm.
don't understand what I do. They don't know what a CTA is or a CTO or partner or
Any of the
executive.
C's.
Yeah, they have no idea. And I'm tired of saying it's up in the cloud and they look up in the sky and they're like, I don't see anything. It's like, okay, we'll move
It's a
on.
cloudless sky, Dad. You're pulling my leg or something, right?
Exactly, exactly. It's like I
Cool.
can't explain it. I can show it to you. Maybe if I show it to you and then you see it and they're like, oh, that's boring. They move on.
Yeah, that's kind of like well, the only thing is since my daughter was well 6 years old and your daughter, she remembers very vividly when I started on the CTA journey, which was 6 years ago. And of course, it's now been almost 2 years since I've earned the credential. And so she and my wife both says, it's not like you earned the CTA, but we earned it with you. So it's
That's
like the whole
right.
family endeavor. Is that how it was for you and your older kids and your wife when
I
you were
think it
going through this?
shows, yeah, I think it shows commitment to something. I think kids, when they get into high school, they've gone through elementary school and middle school, they're in high school, and it's a drag, right? So they're doing the classes again and again and again. My oldest was in international baccalaureate program. Um,
Same.
yeah, so she was
I
in
have
that
that diploma
program.
myself, so I love it.
It was hard. I mean, it was a hard course.
Yeah.
And I remember she came back, from class one day and she said, Dad, I'm taking theory of knowledge. And
Yes.
she explained it to me, right? And I said, you need to see the Matrix. And she's like, what do you mean the Matrix? And I showed her that we watched the Matrix movie and she's like, oh my God, that's amazing. It kind of opened up her mind to thinking about, things in a different way. And for some weird reason, it really helped her get through that class. But I think doing the CTA studying and dedicating time and showing your kids that you're focused on an objective and you're willing to put time away, every weekend. I did Sundays and, during
Of
the
course.
week. And, at first they had a hard time understanding, well, don't you just go to work from 8 to 5? Why don't you do that? And then you're done. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, that's not, if you
It's not
want to
how it
get
works.
ahead, that's not how it
Yeah.
works. You got to put in time after that. And so you do give up a lot of family time doing the CTA or doing other things that I've done in my career. And you have to then really, when you are with your family, really be with your family. And I think that's the hard thing for some people is it's like, okay, well, their mind is somewhere else. You got to disconnect, spend time with your family, or if you're studying for the CTA or whatever your objective is, you got to disconnect from your family and be able to do that. And you just, it's a hard thing. It's hard because I'd much rather, play with my kids and my dogs. I got a dog around here. I'll show you in a minute. But that would be easier. But you got to be dedicated. And I think showing kids that you're dedicated to an objective,
Hmm.
is really important for them to see that.
Yeah, and then you can always kind of lord it over them and say, well, if you think that's hard, I put in untold amount, thousands of hours into this thing, and look at us now, and you can afford all this nice stuff. So basically, what I'm hearing is no regrets, right? So it's you lead by example, no regrets when it comes to your family or your career, right?
Exactly.
All right. So tell me, please, probably everybody wants to know, what is a Salesforce CTO, and do you need a CTA to become one? How do you get from CTA to CTO? I mean, CTAs are just so conditioned into going to the very top, and once you get there, like, all right, what's next?
What's
And
next,
turn that
right?
off, right? Was that how it was for you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting if you look, and just to back up a little bit, when I was at Salesforce, left
Hmm.
Salesforce, became a CTA, and then ran a number of practices, right? So, and running a practice is like running a business, right? So you've
Hmm.
got P&L responsibility, you've got selling, you've got delivery, you've got mentorship, you got to, mentor people up. You got to really love the people and the clients. So practice leadership is really important. When I came to IBM and became the global CTO of the Salesforce practice, really what that entailed is IBM's a really unique company in the sense that we're the third largest Salesforce customer, right?
Hmm.
We're one of the top GSIs. We've got over 10 CTAs now. We work with all Fortune 100, clients, pretty much. And, of course, it's IBM, 113-year-old company. We mentioned it earlier, invented all kinds of technology, the barcode, quantum computing
Hmm.
and things like that. So, when I look at, CTO at IBM, what it is helping IBM use Salesforce, and we use it for our own transformation. If you're ever interested in learning about the client zero story, it's an amazing story. Salesforce has been a big part of that for IBM. Uh, Massive transformation for us. And then if we look at it for our customers, implementing it for them, and then for our people, really making sure we're moving forward with Data Cloud and Agentforce and all the new stuff, all the different industry clouds. You mentioned Auto Cloud. I got to do some work with that too. So that's really exciting. And then the ecosystem, right? There's a lot of different partners out there. I'll give a shout out to Quality Clouds, Flowsum, Capado, Certinia.
Of course, of
So
course,
just
all
a
the big
lot of
ones.
really good partners, working with them. We use a lot of them in IBM, and then we implement a lot of them for our customers. So, really working on the partner side is a big part of what I do. But it's tech, people, and outcomes. How do we make sure we're driving outcomes for all these different, stakeholders? People inside of IBM, executives in IBM, customers of IBM, even the practice people. How do you help mentor them and grow them? When I came to IBM, I was the only CTA, and then Jatendra, as you know very well,
Yes, of course.
um, really helped me put together the CTA Academy. He ran it. We had at one point 11 or 12 CTAs. So pretty amazing accomplishment in a very short period of time, for the practice. So that's really what, a CTO looks like. But I'll tell you, there's also a lot of operational side, lots of
Mhm.
paperwork, there's P&L, there's presentations, there's a lot of
Well, CTAs
management.
are good at presentations, so that's pretty much what we're trained to do, right? But
That's
not the
right. That's right.
P&Ls, not the business
Yeah.
side of things necessarily. Okay, so there's that too.
I think the business side's the harder part for people,
Right.
coming from a technical background and, how do you run a practice? How do you be financially responsible? How do you take investments and realize the results that you put into them, whether it's an acquisition or it's a technology licensing deal, whatever it is. I had some excitement when I first came to IBM. We used Red Hat OpenShift
Mhm.
containerization with MuleSoft and a Salesforce solution for Ireland during COVID.
Mhm.
And that was, I mean, that to me was like the holy grail of IBM Tech, hybrid cloud, Salesforce, data, a pandemic. You put all that
Mhm.
together and we have a solution like that. That was really exciting to see, things like that, be able to help people, during the pandemic.
Yeah, I'm sure you had quite a lot of impact there. So that was actually the year that I started my whole journey to CTA because I was like, well, I'm going to be spending a lot of time at home, so might as well put it some good use. So you were changing the world, and I was just, getting my feet wet with the mocks and stuff. So do you ever miss nerding out on technology as much as you probably had before becoming a CTO?
I think, I will tell you what's great about IBM and is our research. I think I don't want to misquote, but I think we spend about $8 billion a year on research, 6 to 8 billion on research.
With a
And I
B,
had
that's 8
with a
billion.
B, with a B, not an
Uh-huh.
M, a B.
Okay, all right.
So massive amounts of investment in technology research. And I've got to be a part of a lot of those different teams and groups
Hmm.
to look at different technologies. And it was funny. I was actually doing a project before OpenAI came out with SBERT models and looking at Salesforce information, product information, and documentation to use SBERT models to extract meaningful understanding of how to do stuff in Salesforce.
Hmm.
We were making great progress. And then, GPT came out and we're like, this is a lot better. But it was a great experience to see, kind of the AI research and kind of the thought process to, how you engage in research. How do you look at, different, ideas around technology, like our GAN models, where we train, very curated data, and we have small language models that are, very good at doing things, and it's very repeatable, and it's trained on very specific content. And seeing
Hmm.
research put that together, we ran that on Salesforce
I
information.
remember. Yeah, I remember you were
Yeah.
talking about at the DC World Tour back in 24. I actually
Yeah.
came to your session and
Oh,
I was sitting
nice.
there in the front row, and that was actually how we met, I believe, for the first time. Yeah, the small
Yeah.
language model. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are, I mean, the West compute, talk about saving the planet and carbon footprint. Like
Yes.
those things are much more efficient. much more, we understand what the outcomes are going to be. It's really the right way to do very specific trained tasks. And we've done it very well with Salesforce, content. So it's been great to see that.
Nice. All right. So let me ask you this. I do have some questions for you here that I prepared in advance. Uh, was there such a situation? At what point did you realize that being like quote unquote the best architect in the room was no longer the most important part of your job? So when you transcended from the technical into like much more than all those things you described.
Yeah, I think it's when you look at running a practice, I would say one of the last practices I ran was a Capgemini Financial Services practice. So
Hmm.
we had a lot of people, and the Liquid Hub practice we brought into Capgemini Invent, and then even the IBM practice I ran for half a year last year. When you're running a practice, you're representing everybody in a practice. You're representing
Of course.
uh, the company, you're representing the people in the practice. You really have to have their best interest in mind, and you have to be making decisions that support them and the customers.
No
So
pressure at all.
no pressure, no pressure. It's hard. Complex business environment, both in the Salesforce ecosystem, both in the world. Technology is transforming, organizations are transforming, IBM's been transforming, clients are transforming. It's a very hard to get grounded and feel comfortable. So
Mhm.
you got to be okay with change. You got to be okay with making quick decisions. You got to use data. And again, you got to have the right compass. It's got to be about the client. And it's got to be about the people doing the work. And it's got to be about the outcomes. And everything else wants to distract you from that.
So once again, can you think back? Was there maybe an inflection point where you said, okay, I'm a CTA now, I've done all these things, I've helped build practices, or is it something that just kind of happened and you say, well, I guess I'm a CTO now, I guess I'm doing both the business side of things, the people management side of things, the development of relationships, and of course that this is what makes you a CTO. So there's no like is there a direct path just for those who might be interested in
Mhm.
taking that path? Because I remember at least last year there was an initiative of a few CTAs that says what's beyond, what's the next thing,
What's
and we
beyond?
looked at we
Yeah.
looked at how do you become a CTO? It's almost like do you have to go to school for that, or is that something you can just make
Yeah.
make it happen in the right place, the right time, kind of thing?
No, I think, I before I became a CTA, I was an enterprise architect.
Hmm. Okay, so
Then I became a CTA, and then I got a master's in enterprise architecture from Penn State. And then, coming in IBM, they have something called a distinguished engineer. So I went through the distinguished engineer process, and interestingly, it looks at three things. And I think these things apply to anywhere. You don't have to be at IBM, but I think these three things are really important for you to look at your career and where you're at and are you focused on. And the first one is external eminence, right? So you mentioned connections on LinkedIn. Obviously, you have this podcast. Are you, influential outside the company in the public, right? So that's one thing it looks like. Dreamforce, speaking at Dreamforce, speaking at World Tours, doing, Gartner interviews, with analysts, how involved are you kind of externally?
sure.
I wrote a lot of the Salesforce, data Salesforce reports at IBM. So for at least 4 of the 5 years I've been here, I've had influence on those reports. Lots of really good information in there about the
I
market,
read them.
Salesforce. They're really good. Um, so another thing there. And then the second one is really, kind of your technical understanding, right? So how deep technically are you, in technology? Do you really roll up your sleeve and do it? And I will tell you, I was very, like I said, I was working on this whole idea of taking Salesforce content, release notes, product documentation, and using AI to do solutioning, right? So it's
Hmm.
very involved, and I actually spent a year getting a legal agreement done with Salesforce to be able to do that. I think we're still the only GSI that has that agreement, and going through that process, and then how do we bring it in? How do we do the RAG model? How do we have agents, looking at that information, solutioning on it? So I've been a big, part of that. And then, like I mentioned, Red Hat OpenShift in some solutions, other IBM technology, we have zero copy, for example, now
Right.
integrated with Data Cloud. So if you take mainframe data, move it to Data Cloud, I've been involved in those teams. So very technical, right? And then, um, the third one is internal eminence. If you're working at a company, who knows you, right? Do the, other CTOs know you? Does the CEO know you? Does the CIO know you? In the case of IBM, when you're going through the distinguished engineer process, do fellows know you? So we go distinguished engineer and then fellow. How
Hmm.
many fellows know you? Right? Because those are the ones that are going to be looking at your application and saying, hey, what's Matt? Is Matt really, at the level that we want Matt to be? Um, so I think some of that. I don't think there's a clear do this, this, and this and become a CTO. I
Right.
think in the Salesforce world, and I think we talked earlier about, maybe an enterprise architect kind of level above, CTA maybe at some future point. I don't know. But are you looking at the enterprise and you're looking at the business that the enterprise wants to be? And are you able
Mhm.
to match technology to that to make it happen? At the end of the day, that's what a CTO is supposed to do. You're supposed to have that technology roadmap to make the business successful, whether that's your client or whether that's the company you work for.
Well, you can't have a business without customers, right? So make them
That's
successful,
right.
it makes the business successful. So I
That's right.
actually always try to think of the end client. Like for instance, it's not always possible to work with the end client. I mean, you worked with Veterans Affairs. I also worked. That was some of the most
Yeah.
meaningful work that I've had.
Yeah.
Obviously, I
That's
wasn't
huge.
interacting with the veterans, the recipients of, say, Veterans Crisis Line. But I was also always thinking about like, well, what is their end user experience going to be? So
Right.
yeah, I guess if you're focusing on those things and how to do it most resource efficient way, then that's what would get you there, right? So
Yeah. Outcomes. Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious to hear your opinion because lately I've been pretty vocal about the CTA credential and the importance of it and how much I love it, and basically just championing the whole CTA awareness. Uh, and then folks started reaching out in droves, and some of the same questions have emerged. They
Mm,
say, Is there a school we can go to
mm.
become a CTA? Is there a program we can join to make sure that we're on the right track?" And then I kind of dug in a little bit deeper, and for some of those folks, they say, I just can't bring myself to sit down and do it. I don't know where to begin. I'm stuck in a technical role, and I'm said, well, there's so many resources right now. So
Yeah.
there's Tamim's book. There are programs. I mean, a bunch of people coach. I coach to become a CTA. There are study groups. There's Architect Ohana, and
So
so
much.
there's many ways to get started. And I guess if you also, let's say you want to become a CTO, it's a similar situation. There's many ways you can get started. You just have to have your heart set on it and don't ever consider giving up if that's your dream. So, what do you say to that? Is that something you see as a truth, or maybe there's something else I'm not considering?
Yeah, I think so. When I was at Salesforce, it was interesting. I had 90 days to get sales, service, and admin certified,
Hmm.
right? Or maybe it was just service and admin. I can't remember. Anyway, you had 90 days to get certified.
Hmm.
And I was working out of Chicago. It was where Model Metrics was acquired by Salesforce and Adam Kaplan and all of that. And I remember the CTA thing coming up, and I said, "Well, I'd love to, be in the CTA Academy." They had an academy in San Francisco, and I was denied. No, you can't go do that. I'm like, and I'm working on 8 enterprise projects, somewhere in a $100 million range altogether. And I'm like, seriously, guys, like I'd really like to
What's
be
it gonna
involved.
take, right?
What's it going to take? And I was told I was denied. And then I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm on multiple projects. And, I think number one, you have to learn by doing,
Yeah,
right? So actually being hands-on in the project, in the architecture, if you're doing OAuth 2 flows, if you're doing integration patterns, if you're doing data cloud and connecting, companion orgs, if you're doing agent force and guardrails, whatever you're doing, right? You got to be hands-on. You got to get deep, right?
right,
I see a lot of architects that want to do paper. They want to draw boxes with connections. That's not going to get you to CTA, right? So I think you got to be hands-on, and then you got to look at the test. What most people fail? It's security, right? Something like 70% of the people fail because of security. Okay, so what does that mean? There's ORI defaults, there's sharing rules. There's, OAuth, SAML, different types of authentication. So how does all that work? I was just setting up a SAML 2, no, OAuth 2 connection just the other day, and I was like, all the settings and everything's missing. And then, they changed from the, remember the username and password and token, that's gone. So
yes.
you
Thank
got
God, finally.
so annoying, right? Um, so you got to be hands-on, right? And you got to know it. And then what I'd say is on the security stuff, what I did is I actually took all the PDFs that were online, all the help guides and all that. I printed them. I mean, I had a stack like this big, and I literally printed everything and I read everything multiple times. I mean, just over and over and over again, right? How do you do the mobile authentication? How do you become how does Salesforce an IDP or use an IDP? Like over and over and over again. And I took this thing like, well, I don't know, 12 years ago, and I'm still talking like it was yesterday. But
It
I
was
read it.
2013, I believe, right? That's when you got
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah, 13 years ago. Man, I
Yeah, it was
feel
13 years, depending on the month, right?
but yeah, and I mean I printed them off and you just go in order and you do it. And I think what we didn't have then was Trailhead. Like you've got
Mhm.
Trailhead. You can do most of this stuff now. Actually, open up a sandbox and go in there and actually execute and do it, which is amazing. We didn't have that tool then. I mean, I had sandboxes because I worked at Salesforce, but we did not have Trailhead. So,
Interesting.
um, read the concept, go do it. Read the concept, go do it. You got to know it. Um, I think we talked about the CTA board, and I filled up, I don't know, 30 something slides, and then I filled up the entire whiteboard of the whole conference room. Um, you just got to know it.
Well, that
And
was then. That was a whole different format. Now it's all
you
online.
know,
There's no in person. So, like Lucid Chart, just basically read the study guide. That'll tell you what the current. But back in the day, you had to bring in an actual project that you had completed, and the client had to sign off on that. Is that how
that's
it went?
right. That's right. And I had to, and I know I judged for a number of years, and
Oh,
we
do tell us everything about that. Just kidding. Just kidding. NDA
can't tell
applies,
you about
right?
that. I can't tell you about that.
Right.
But I did like the idea that you had to actually have a client sign a project and say that you delivered it as the architect. I think that's important.
Hmm.
So even if you're just doing mocks, you need to have been on projects and you needed to have been the lead architect. And I think it's in the number of 10 projects. You don't do one or two and you're ready to be a CTA. You need to do 10. And they need to be complicated and complex and be challenging. And they need to be large. You can't go in there and say, I did Sales Cloud for 10 users out of the box. Like that's not a CTA thing, right? Where's
In
the
your sleep, you
complexity?
can do that.
I mean,
Literally,
you
like
know,
draw the data model. Boom.
yeah, the data model, the sharing, account sharing on the data model always gets people
Right.
for Experience Cloud, for example. So those are the kind
Understood.
of things that hook you, that will trip you up. So make sure you've done Experience Cloud. Make sure you've done public exposing of data the right way, not the wrong way. How do you make sure you're protecting, all the information that a client has on Salesforce? So if you think of, and we talked a little bit about this before this, you got to put your Salesforce hat on. You got to drink the Kool-Aid and you put your Salesforce hat on and really know what Salesforce wants, and they want customer success, right?
Of course.
They don't want data issues. They don't want, performance issues. They don't want delays. They want the client to get up and running and be successful. And that is ultimately your goal to do that with Salesforce. So, there might be an enterprise architecture way to do something differently, but it may, create a different risk. It may be outside the bounds of Salesforce's control. You got to think through that and really make sure you're understanding what Salesforce and what you want for the client and why they built a platform. So I think it's important to think of all those things.
So you kind of did something different. Like I see people becoming good at, really good at Salesforce, become talented at Salesforce, then they branch into the enterprise architecture. You were already an enterprise architect, and then you went into Salesforce and became one of the top people in the world for it. So would you say that kind of narrowed your focus? Or did you just change your focus and you were clearly intentional about that? So any regrets in like doing that?
I think it's been amazing. So I'll say this. One, the 12 or 13 Dreamforces I've been to, the people that I met, the community around Salesforce. I mean, Mark has created something special, right? And um I can only hope that it continues and people will support each other and the Ohana and everything that I've grown to love about Salesforce. I think from a personal perspective, I think the enterprise view gave me a broader view of our clients when they're doing Salesforce. So,
Hmm.
meaning like, where do I need to get this data from? What do I need to integrate with? I had a lot of integration background. So, how do I do, the right integration patterns? Where we see people do a bunch of, Apex, you know, web service development, all custom. I'm not a big fan of that, right?
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of an enterprise service bus or now event bus, bring in the right architecture, make it scalable, make it, manageable, make it secure, So I think that enterprise view gave me a different perspective, and I've helped clients kind of think through that. A lot of it's been around data. So where does data reside? Are you duplicating data? Are you using, you bringing too much data into Salesforce and you're not going to use it? You
exactly.
know,
Yeah. Every day we struggle with
every
all these
day.
questions. Yeah.
You look at the account object, there's 800 fields that have special approval. Come on, guys. Nobody's going to use 800 fields on the account. I don't care what you say.
I've seen 498 out of 500 basically on the custom object, no less.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen custom ones where they've gone above, they've had special approvals, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, are you going to really use that data? Is it going to be in a workflow? Is it going to be in a report? Is it critical to your sellers or your support agents? And I ask the hard questions, and clients love it because, like, the business will just ask for everything, or IT just wants to dump the data in there just because they have nowhere else to put it. So,
Yes, of
like,
course.
right? And I'm like, no, no, let's
What's
do it.
what's the purpose, right? And as a
What's the
CTO, you probably
purpose?
have to think about, well, that was actually one of my questions is how does the decision making change when the blast radius is the entire company rather than a single Salesforce org? So you're not thinking per project anymore, but you're thinking about like what's it going to do for or to IBM or maybe a customer's company.
Yeah, so I've dealt with customers that have hundreds of orgs.
Hmm.
And then, some of that's acquisition, some of that's just poor leadership in the technology side of the company. I'm a big fan of one org, like I really am. Um, but I give an example client. We went in there, they had three divisions, I won't name them, but they had a medical division, a consumer products division, and a clothing division. And the medical division had no overlap into the other two.
Hmm.
And they wanted to bring all three orgs into one. And I said, you shouldn't do it. The
Or
medical
agreed. That's a clear multi-org separation. I love
clear,
that.
it's a clear reason why you don't do it. The medical division was growing faster. They accounted for more of the revenue. There was no overlap with consumer or clothing, and they went ahead and did it. And that I was at one company, and we did it for them anyway. We told them not to. They're like, we want to do it. We made the decision. We did it for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
I went to another company, and they were asking for us to undo it.
So the lesson is to anybody who's watching, right, who is basically not in the Salesforce ecosystem, but could be a client. Ignore the advice of an enterprise architect who's also a CTA at your own peril, at your own risk. It's going to cost, like they say, if you think it's expensive to hire a professional, wait till you hire an amateur, right, and see what happens. So that's one of those.
I mean, I don't mind. I mean, you know, I just hope if somebody makes a recommendation, look at who's making the recommendation. They've been through a
Mhm.
lot.
Yeah,
I've been about $2 billion worth of Salesforce projects, sales and delivery. I've seen just about everything. Like,
I bet.
I mean, just hear me out, throw your idea at me. I'll tell you if it's good, bad, or ugly. I don't have any desire other than for you to be successful with the company. And I think that's the enterprise architecture view is really about enabling the business to be successful. And people are like, "Oh, you got a master's in enterprise architecture. That was all about technology." And I'm like, "No, it was like 60, 70% business. And then the
Mm,
rest
okay.
was technology. Technology just supports the business. The business has to be successful. And that's one of the things I love about Salesforce is its configurability. It's declarative nature. Like that's why Mark built it. He wanted it to be clicks over code. When we had S controls and an Apex and Lightning,
It's
like
control. Yeah, I'm gonna miss those.
it's, it's been an evolution. But I think most companies can use Salesforce out of the box. And I challenge, I did a company, they had 5 Salesforce orgs. They're in Atlanta. I won't name them. But 13 different divisions, 5 orgs, and they had tried multiple times to bring these orgs together. And now these businesses did share customers. They did want to create a common
Mhm.
portfolio. They did want to do quoting together and service together and order management and fulfillment together. And they had tried with one GSI failed, another GSI failed, IT failed, and we came in and we actually, we it was rocky in the beginning. I'm not going to lie, it was hard, but it wasn't the technology; it was the organization. The organization was
The
hard.
alignment then, right? That failed.
It was the alignment. We would get on call and there's 70 people on a conference call, and I'm like, that's not the way we're
That
going to.
could not be productive. There's no way that could be productive. That's
There's no
70
way
people.
70
Yeah.
people can't order a sandwich for lunch, there's no way they can do that. And so I reset it. We reset the model. We what we call global template. We redid it, and I can get into another conversation on another webinar. But long story short, 98% of the box, 13 business units, one Salesforce org. We're talking marketing, sales, service, CLM, order management, order fulfillment, all in one environment.
That's amazing. That's basically like your perfect mock scenario, but in real life. How
Perfect.
long did that take, that whole effort?
That took 3 years.
3 years. Okay, so it wasn't
It,
overnight. So
it
basically,
was not
yeah. So
overnight.
some of my questions had to do with like how do you actually communicate with the C levels? How do you speak to the CEOs, for instance, maybe investors, even the boards? They want to be deep down in the weeds of the
They
technical
don't.
piece. They don't care. So basically,
Yeah.
that would you can't be just a pure CTA, or can you? It's like what? How do you adapt to those types of situations?
Well, it's interesting. The project I was just going over, I was on a steerco with the head of sales, the CFO,
Mhm.
and
Steerco, by the way, steering committee for those who
steering
maybe.
committee.
Yes,
Yes.
for the Center of Excellence.
Yep. So this is the CFO is funding the effort, of
Hmm.
course.
Of course. Mhm.
We got the head of sales. They had multiple heads of service, which was another challenge. And we're on a call and we're discussing that the project's not going the way we want it to go. And I clearly said, look, you guys are doing it wrong. And I was very honest about it. And this was to the point of the 70 people on a conference call and nobody making decisions and not iterating and showing POCs fast.
Decision by committee kind of thing. Yeah, it
Yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
happens.
All this stuff. And I'm like, we've got to change. You guys are not ready for this, one company initiative. And I'm seeing it, and here's where I'm seeing it. We need to change it. And the head of sales was upset about that. But the CFO goes, no, Matt's right. And
You won the CFO over, that's like half the battle right there.
that was critical to the project not being canceled
Hmm.
and having another, failed project. What I would say is you've got to be vocal. I think I see some CTAs and architects, they're on a project and they feel siloed,
Hmm.
and they may be pushed down by the account team or by the client team, or the steerco, or see whoever, right?
Right.
Oh, Matt's raising his hands, he's got concerns. Well, go put Matt over here, right? Let's go hide Matt.
I've been in those situations
You've
before,
been
like
it,
in
we've
the
all been.
earlier days, not recently, of course,
We know
but yeah.
what's right, and we're not being heard. And so what I highly recommend you do is you do what's right. You have to go to your leadership. And if you got to skip leadership, sometimes you got to skip leadership. Um, it happens. But, I think your conscience, and your client's paying for your expertise. So if you know you're right, get in front of the right people, and this is the hard part for a lot of technical people, you got to make relationships, right? So one of the guys I had to make a relationship didn't wear socks, and he was obviously a gym buff, and I love the guy. I was a little intimidated at first, but
Hmm.
he's the coolest guy. He had tattoos and he wore a suit. I mean,
But no
he was,
socks.
yeah, yeah. And not me, but I became really good friends with him, through that project.
Did you
And
get
I'm
him
saying,
Salesforce branded socks? And I was like, hey man, now you can afford a pair of
yeah, you
socks.
got him. You got him. And we've co-presented at Dreamforce. We've done all kinds of fun stuff. We still keep in touch. But it's like you've got to
Nice.
make friends on all sides. If you're sitting in a consultancy like a GSI, you got to be friends in the markets and the account teams. You got to be friends with the client. The politicking and the friendship
Yeah.
making is at a different level. And I've not always
Hmm.
been good. I've not always been good at it. I could probably do more of it. But I think if
Same.
you want to look at your career, like that's really important. Relationships is everything when you get to the higher levels. Being a good CTA and putting deliverables together, you can do that, in your room by yourself, right? And you can do a
Which
great
I
job
usually
of
do, yes. So,
it.
so you said that relationships are important when you get to that level, but then in order to get to that level, you need to build those relationships, right? So it's not a chicken and egg situation. I always thought that, relationships were important just in general, just for
It
the sake
is.
of humanity, and that's not something that AI can replace, right?
It is. It is really important, the relationships, because they're the ones that are going to hire you. They're the ones that are going to give you the opportunity. When I was at Accenture Federal,
Hmm.
I was at phase one and I was a VP of digital strategy for all of like 30 days. I found out we were being acquired by Accenture. Um, but I still had a friend that was running global delivery at Liquid Hub, and he called me and said, "Man, I need somebody to run this practice, and I want you to do it." And that relationship gave me the chance to run that practice and run that practice into Capgemini Invent and then run the financial services practice. So that's a relationship. That wasn't me applying for a job. That wasn't me, whatever, doing deliverables or whatever. I knew the guy, he knew me, and the opportunity opened up. And you're only going to get those opportunities by building relationships with people and trust.
Oh
Your
yeah,
your
absolutely,
word is
absolutely.
everything. You break your word, you don't show up, you don't deliver, your word becomes everything. It's very hard. And I'll tell you, that's probably the hardest thing, like CTO level. I
Hmm.
have to ignore a lot of stuff that I
Hmm.
want to do. Like I want to help everyone, but I can't help everyone.
So you
And I think
prioritize then.
you have to prioritize, and things are going to fall.
Hmm.
They're going to fall, and you're going to have to trust people to do things. That's a very hard thing for a lot of us to be able to do.
So you mentioned Jitendra Zag, dear friend of mine. I always looked up to him. There's other CTAs who work at IBM, like Mike McGee, for instance. So I would imagine that you would be maybe a level or two removed, like you're essentially their boss. Now, do you hire people smarter than you and just get out of their way? Because you mentioned like you cannot do everything yourself. You're just one person. You have a lot going on, but you have to trust them. Like, what's your
I
approach to that?
First of all, I married someone smarter than me. So my
Me
wife,
too.
she's a doctor of pharmacy, and she's
All
very,
right.
very smart. So I highly recommend marry someone smarter than you.
Above your station,
Um,
absolutely. Have
Um,
smarter kids, that's the other thing, right?
I was going to say smart kids. That's really
Yes.
important. It's funny. My son's kind of really likes sports, and I'm like, just do the academics, and he likes sports, and so we kind of gone back and forth. But he's really smart. And I think the other thing is with hiring people, you should absolutely look for people that are smarter than you. Um, the biggest thing is you got to look for people that are caring about the customer, caring about the company. Their word means something, and
Hmm.
they're smarter than you, right? So there's
And trust them to do the best job that they
yeah,
possibly can, right?
right. I think the hardest thing today is, are they going to do the job? Are they going to wake up and get the work done? Are they going to have the work ethic? They can be really, I've seen so many really smart people that just don't want to do the work. And,
Hmm.
I was early on in IBM, I was brought into a project and we're in discovery, and the architect there is not doing the documentation, not taking notes. I'm literally building the diagrams and building the deliverables as the discovery meetings are going on. I'm doing it myself. And when it was over, I was like, here it is. This is the solution. And they're like, wait, why did you do that? You're the CTO. I'm like, because it wasn't being done.
In real time, right? So you can basically drop down to any level, like perceived level. Like you'd be a business analyst, right? If you wanted to
Yeah, I
be
mean,
right
I've done
now.
workshops. I've done workshops with clients, right? And to your point, running ideation, we call it garage, co-create, co-execute, cooperate. But yeah, workshops with clients. I love workshops. I love getting from a whiteboard and just, what do we want to do? How do we
Ideation, yeah.
want to be different, right? I love that. And I just feel like some people just need to jump in, right? Jump in and do it and get it done. And so to your point, you got to hire people that have the work ethic. They need to be smarter than you. They need to, give you different perspectives. I'll tell you one of the things I love about IBM is the diversity.
Hmm.
Uh, I have worked at some companies, there's zero diversity. Just
Really, that's even
absolutely
possible. In this country, that's possible to
in
have
this
zero
country,
diversity. Wow.
very little diversity. I won't say zero, that's not fair, but very little diversity.
Okay.
And when I came to IBM, it was like, wow, it's just every different type of person you could ever imagine on every different call, on every different project. And it's just a breath of fresh air. It's just amazing to hear their backgrounds and where they come from and their thoughts and their views. And, I think when you bring that to a client, it's just amazing because different ideas come up and different ways of working. And that's how you evolve, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, so I think you got to be wide open, definitely smarter, definitely, hardworking, definitely diverse. You want all those qualities.
All right. Well, final, probably the most relevant question that I can ask you is what advice would you give a complete newcomer? Let's say they're me 10 years ago. So I started my Salesforce journey totally by accident, accidental admin 10 years ago. I only knew how to convert a lead back in January 2016. Okay, I'm not kidding you. It's like you've already been a CTA for 3 years. I just knew how to convert a lead. I was an end user of Salesforce. Then I went somewhere else, and they wanted me to basically redo their org. And I said, "Well, you don't expect me to do this live in production." They said, "Yes, you can't
Oh,
have a
wow.
sandbox because we already have two." At least I knew
Yeah.
instinctively that was not the right thing to do. Okay, so instinctively I knew that. But
Don't get me started
basically,
on sandbox strategy.
yeah, forget that. Didn't exist as a concept at the time, at least not with that place. But they give me my launch, so to speak. And so what I'm getting at is I remember my initial contract lasted about 3.5 months, and then they decided to roll off of Salesforce, move on to HubSpot. So I was again out of a job. And so I decided to actually study for the admin exam. So I studied for 2 months, passed it in May, I believe. I have to check. And then the summer, I was able to secure a job at Acumen Solutions, which is now, of course, acquired by Salesforce. And
Yeah.
so I just remember that somebody said, once you get your first cert, then you'll be set. And that's essentially how it played out. It was very easy. I mean, comparatively, it was still, you had to go through interviews and so on to break into the Salesforce ecosystem. But right now, it feels like it's a lot more closed. than it used to
Mm,
be back then. So it's harder to break in. A lot of talented people out there looking for work.
right.
So what advice would you give to a complete newcomer that they can actually use? Don't tell me
Yeah.
things like, "Oh, be fearless," that sort of stuff. But like,
That's easy to
ask
say, right?
questions. Right? Easy to say, hard to do.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of pieces of advice, right? So I think, look, you got to embrace AI. And I don't mean agent force. I do, of course, agent force, but I mean AI, right? So
Okay.
as a consultant, as an implementator, implementing technology, implementer, you got to embrace AI, right? So, using AI to think about solutioning, using AI to think about, even configuring a Salesforce org. There's a lot of partners out there that have tools to do that. Looking at the technical debt using AI, looking at the configuration. I mean, you've got to become an AI first person. That's it.
AI
Number one,
native, which I think for the upcoming generation, that's like an
it's
easy,
critical.
natural thing, right?
It's a,
They
it's a
grew up
critical
with that.
thing. I was working with some programmers not too long ago, and I was like, why are you guys not using these AI tools? And there's this hesitancy. So if you're in the ecosystem now and you're not using AI in your job, you are at a disadvantage to everyone else that's coming
Of
into
course.
it,
Hmm.
right? So you either embrace it or you become obsolete. And I think that's a hard thing. It's not even an option. Everything you do, you need to be thinking about how would I do this using AI? So I think that's number one. I think the second one is a lot of people are scared. Like my
Yeah.
son wanted to be a programmer, and he's like, well, there's not going to be any programmers. I'm like, yes, there will be programmers, but there will be AI first programmers, right? There will be AI first Salesforce consultants and delivery people, and how will you help companies then use AI themselves, right? And so
Responsibly, right? Without creating mountains
responsibly,
of technical debt. Because they
that's
say
right,
2026 is
right.
going to be the year of technical debt.
Yes. Well, it's here. Everybody has it. It's
Right.
already the enterprises have built it up for so long. I've been trying to, take some of it out. It's been a journey. But there's so much technical debt. You and I could spend the rest of our lives, trying to get rid of technical debt. Um, so I think helping companies understand what that, how do you get rid of the technical, and you don't do it overnight. I mean, you
No.
can if you go to a new org, maybe an industry cloud or something like that. You could, but it's not going
Sales
to
Cloud
happen.
out of the box,
You
right
could
there,
do it.
ready to
You could do
go.
it. It's very possible.
Yeah.
There is a way. And I say that's too with the new people coming in. Be bold. If you go into a client and you see massive amounts of technical debt, IT takes 6 months to make a change, which is the whole reason they bought Salesforce because they wanted to be able to move and change fast. That's what they were sold. Be
Mhm.
bold. Say, you know what? Maybe you should move to a new work. Maybe we should look at health cloud or financial services cloud or an industry cloud and just move to a fresh new org. And let's have a mandate. Less than 10%, 5% technical debt, and let's hold
Mhm.
to it. How do you do that? Think through that. I think you should be bold. Now's the time to be bold. It's not to be timid. Companies want people to be bold. They want, I'm going to get outcomes. I want you to drive outcomes, and it needs to be significant. So,
Yeah, I can't help it but think about the recent clients that, we want to move out of the situation that we're in right now. And it's
yeah,
basically an OEM, Salesforce org.
yeah,
And they're thinking that we need to basically free ourselves. So I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to definitely look at what you currently have and inventory everything. And then we're going to move you to a greenfield org. And we don't necessarily need to replicate everything one for one because what would be the point of
yeah.
that? But that was my initial um, idea. And I was like, yeah, they may not like it, but this is the right thing to do. I know it instinctively as an architect, but the complete newcomer wouldn't know that necessarily, right?
It may
So,
not, but I would say listen to the people on your team.
okay.
So, listen to the people that have done it for years, the people that have, been in your situation, having to make these type of decisions and present them to clients.
Hmm.
Like lean in. You're not just an army of one. You're a team. And what I always say with, the GSIs, the big ones, they always look at themselves as a project, as a little boat, like a little dinghy, but you're
Hmm.
next to an aircraft carrier, right? So don't forget there's an aircraft carrier next to you. Leverage it. There's people. There's so many times I see a project about to go under and they're
Hmm.
not raising their hand. They're not signaling the aircraft carrier. Like you need to signal the aircraft carrier and say you need help, right? Do not be afraid to ask for help. So I'd say AI first, be bold, listen. You know,
Hmm.
I tell my kids all the time they have two ears and one mouth.
Yes,
You should
for a
listen
reason.
twice as much as you talk.
Yes.
And then leverage the people around you. Like learn from them. You know, learn from them. That's the biggest thing you can do is learn from the experts, learn from the people that have been through these situations before. So those are the three big ones I think that, you know, newcomers should do. And it's one day at a time. It's a little changes every day, a little bit of practice every day, and you get to the end. You can't just, you know, put it all together at the end of the week and do it all in an hour. It doesn't work that way. It's a little bit of progress every day.
And you can't just skate on motivation because that kind of here today, gone tomorrow, but consistency and discipline, like everything else, right?
That's right.
All
That's
right,
right.
cool. Well, hey, thank you so much. It's been extremely interesting, insightful, and it didn't disappoint. Thank you very much. Of course, what we set out to do is talk about how to become a CTO, what does it mean to be a CTA, to go from one to the next, and to sell as many Girl Scout cookies as possible. So again, help Isla. So the
Really
link will
appreciate it.
be in.
Watch the video of Isla. It was hard to get her to do that. So please watch the
Yes, please buy a cookie, she
video.
said. I've seen it. It is very endearing, absolutely endearing.
Yeah.
So please buy a
Yeah.
cookie. So that's awesome.